Hey guys, it's Matt. Welcome back to the Old Fashioned Radio Show for August 2022. If you've got your Peter Stuyvesant, smoke them, crack them if you got them. Uncork your favorite bottle of Ripple. If you're outside, make sure your bug zapper is set to 10. If you're Novak Djokovic listening to this, we know it's still up in the air, but it looks bad that you're not going to be allowed to play the U.S. Open because you didn't rent the movie. You didn't rent the movie Action Jacksonation. Now, Novak, if you're listening, the U.S. Open, there isn't a lot of time. It starts Monday the 29th, is it? Let me check that. Monday the 29th of August, the U.S. Open tennis starts, and it ends on Sunday, September 11th. So it ends on, what's funny about that? I don't know. If you've studied dark reality 7 days a week for over 12 years, you would laugh at this weird stuff too. It ends Sunday. The tennis tournament, allow this to load, bot. The tennis tournament ends Sunday, September 11th. But Novak, if you're listening, and I'm sure you are, it doesn't look good, my man, unless you rent the movie. They don't let anybody in the country still. What if American citizens were trapped outside of the country? Would they be allowed in? Would they be sent to Guantanamo Obama Bay? How would that work if you were an American citizen trapped? I don't know. Going into the old-fashioned radio show, I remind everybody this is not a 1.25 exercise. If you're a bathroom boy that wants to get here, grab the truth, go over to your old man in a chair, get some Odyssey, get some BitChute, get some Brighteon, go back into the bathroom with a new centerfold, this is not for you. Now, I will get to one of the most amazing, crazy, way out exercises in thinking big theory. We have to call it right now a theory from Steffers. I'll get to that pretty soon because a lot of people are like, Matt, I don't want to put up with this horse shit. You talk about your sponsors. You try to be fun. I don't get to it. God damn. It's not a 1.25 exercise, but we will get to Steffers. I don't know what to say about the theory. Again, some of you will be like, that's complete horse shit. Some of you will be like, if this is correct or she's onto something here, it's like the greatest breakthrough in understanding of how reality works of all time. Now, I'm not jumping there yet, okay? It's so far out there. She would have a lot of work to do to convince me. But I asked her, I said, why don't we just float this to the group and just see what comes back in the comments? Because it's one of those things, you have inner knowing, inner tuning fork. It just resonated that there's like at least bits and pieces of this that are true. And if it's true, it's basically the greatest breakthrough in terms of understanding how reality works of all time. But, I'm going to put it 1 out of 10 at this point. She would have a lot of work to do to convince us something this way out could be real. In terms of the research that Steffers has done on the Magenta agenda, I'd say, as a comparison to what I've done, I've done a 1 out of 10. She's done a 10 out of 10, or maybe I'm at a half. The amount of information she's compiled, the amount of things she's gone over and found, I don't know. Was it applicable to that Stephen King movie, The Lawnmower Man, or Lieutenant Barclay in Star Trek when he plugged himself into the main computer? So for the impatience, we'll get to that first. But it is the old-fashioned radio show. So let me just mention this real quick, and we'll get right to it. Somebody emailed me kind of as a joke, a joke back and forth. A lot of people that email me, Matt, do you still have, per an old sponsor, Michael's? It was Michael's sponsor, the tuck guards. Do you still have a I said, yeah, we got tons of supply of tuck guards, tuck guard underwear for Michael. The 2008 election for Mike, tuck guard underwear. And I said, you know what I thought? I said, maybe because I've got all this product to move, it's tuck guard underwear, so you can hide it. You know what I mean? You can hide it without tape. Maybe I can get the guy that does the Balance commercials. I don't know if they have this in Europe or wherever around the world, or what part of these Crocodile Dundee Outback you're listening from. But there's a guy in the U.S. who advertises, it's Hanes, or it's so disturbing. I don't even know who it is. Hanes or Fruit of a Loom Balance, B-A-L-L, balls, Balib. It has a little pouch. Ew! It has a little pouch to hold your stuff. Well, who's carrying that around? Men didn't need that for hundreds and hundreds of years. One guy out of 1,000 is carrying some sort of coconuts down there would need a little pouch. Who's going to buy that fucking product though? Balance. So anyway, this Balance guy is going to be out of work. Let's get him to do the Michael Tuck guards and push them on the internet. But anyway, let's get right to the Steffers theory. One more disclaimer before getting into what I got from Steffers. First of all, she hasn't carefully prepared this. There's no white paper I'm reading from. It's just an email here or part of a response from getting back to somebody at peaceofmindful.com. She herself would say she's not sure of this. She has a long way to go before convincing me or us. To some of you, this is the weirdest, most craziest thing you've ever heard. But I don't know about you. I think I can speak for you. At this, where we are, channels like this, people like you, people like me, we love to think big. We are reality junkies to a degree, but we love to think big, and there is no bigger thinking than this. If we determine to be horse shit, we'll call it out as horse shit. Okay, that's the disclaimer. So I'm just going to start reading here. Again, this is all over the place. It's not carefully prepared. Okay, and it has to do with, of course, why are we seeing the magenta everywhere? The implications of this are immense. You'd have to read between the lines to get the full gist of it. Keep in mind, this guy is scientific advisor on Westworld. He knows what he's talking about. I can't stand this dude, but he's super smart. His last name is Eagleman. What is his first name? I don't know. He's the scientific... Steffers has been over his TED Talks and has researched this guy, Eagleman, the scientific advisor to Westworld. Okay. She has a link to the TED Talk here, which I haven't been over. She says, my key takeaway, in at least the research she's done so far on this, in relation to our collaborative interrogation of the... Collaborative interrogation of the magenta and what that color and why it's being pushed so aggressively, in that it potentially is the color spectrum, the electromagnetic spectrum itself, that is in charge here. Yeah, on Earth, in this snow globe, on this plane of existence. I'm adding a lot, guys. The electromagnetic spectrum itself is potentially in charge here. Okay, let that sink in. Yeah, Roy G. Biv in charge, or a cyan magenta color wheel in some way. The sentience of this place is there. That's what she's saying. Let's be open-minded. Not a human in charge. Not a ancient family. Not an ET or an interdimensional being or anything else that we've ever brought out in front of the police lineup. The full 360-degree spectrum is inherently interdimensional and thus exists outside of our time-space reality. It is the all-seeing eye, potentially. Our planet, potentially, whatever we call Earth, has inside, at its core, potentially a version of what we call the all-seeing eye that sees and knows all, at least about the governing dynamics or inner workings of this reality. It can be represented itself literally as the frequency or the frequency of something that apparently doesn't exist from a wavelength perspective, magenta. I keep wanting to say magenta. It represents itself as the magenta. I also see it covertly depicted in the media as a clock or a timepiece or a wristwatch. Continuing. So, Matt, when you speak of the reality breakdowns, the download in people, strange behavior like the download, getting people on the frequency, and your theory that human beings, or what they call human beings, are not doing all of this themselves or are in on it. I would say more, they're carrying out the wishes of the not milk. She's saying, related to this theory, you are mostly correct. It is the electromagnetic waves, pulses, spectrum that is omniscient and omnipresent and is the strongest influence on life, emotion, behavior, mind of, quote, human beings. The closer one gets to sensing more of the spectrum, the more synchronous occurrences, aka synchromysticism, including the appearance of the Mandela effect and or retrocausality, will then bubble up and blossom. This is a natural result of being more intensely aware of our color-light environs, environs. It comes with the territory of expanded awareness, leading us to experience what is already around us, but is naturally hidden to most. However, that does not necessarily indicate that we changed anything. It does not necessarily indicate that we changed anything. Rather, we, real people, literally see the past, present, and future with new eyes, REAL eyes, real eyes, as in perceiving more color, light, electromagnetic waves than our fellow humans, than the guy down the cul-de-sac, and more than we did prior to gaining keener sensory perception. Guys, I know this is difficult. I will summarize the best I can when we're finished. That said, in ancient times, there were humans who already understood this, many who had more access to a wider range of the spectrum. They were, quote, over the rainbow, so to speak, hence the Wizard of Oz and the Wiz. These ancient, quote, humans were super sensory beings. The most adept could perceive in 360 degrees, think owls and owl imagery. Think Bohemian Grove imagery. Over millennia, we lost these sensing capabilities, such that our range of awareness became smaller and smaller and smaller. My personal notes here before continuing to read what Steffer sent me. Look, we all agree. There's no doubt that a tremendous amount of, for lack of better words, governing devices have been placed on us and the avatar we inhabit over who knows how long. We are probably so dumbed down, so limited in what we can perceive versus ancient, quote, ancient man, ancient women, whatever stories of Lemuria or Atlantis or whatever civilizations exist. And you can see it even in our own generation. I'm not trying to be mean to anybody younger listening to this. I'm sure you're the exception. But look how dumb, look how dumb the kids are in elementary school or junior high and high school today versus even when I went to high school. And Greg, people like Greg talked about his grandfather as like being able to do anything. So just we can see the dumbing down, which acts like a governor, a restrictor plate. Very interesting that NASCAR right now is in love with called restrictor plate racing. They don't let the speeds go over a certain amount. There's a literal restriction plate on the racing. I've told that story when I drove the van up that I rented from Los Angeles moving to San Francisco. We had this 6.5 hour drive ahead of me or whatever it is up the I-5. It's just a straight shot forever. Everybody's going 85 miles an hour. And I told you, I went to pedal to the metal, and there was a literal governor. There was something that pushed back on my foot that wouldn't let the damn truck get over 58 or 59 or 60 miles an hour. I mean, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I said to my cousin Mike, we're going to be here all night, but I can't go over 58. Cars passing me at 85. Anyway, this has happened, of course, to what we call our perception. It's everything we have is being governed, dumbed down. Our spiritual connections being cut off. Okay, it's just relevant to what Stavros was talking about here. Let me continue to read. I'll repeat the last sentence so we can kind of overlap where we left off. These ancient man or woman were super sensory beings. They could perceive at 360 degrees, owl imagery. We lost these sensing capabilities such that our range of awareness became smaller and smaller and smaller. When these senses are heightened, synthesia would be the pinnacle of this. Synesthetsia. I don't know what that is. When they're heightened, we can perceive more than the normies, more than the guy down the cul-de-sac, or even perceive more than other people in our truth community. I've found this over the past month that living in solitude with my cat, had a really major injury that had to be tended to almost 24/7. It greatly enhanced my perception, Steffers says. Guys, it's Matt again. Quickly, when we talk about what we have in common in this community, I've recently talked about imagination. Nobody's ever come forth again to me and said, Matt, I didn't have an imagination as a kid. I don't speak to myself, or I didn't play with action figures or paint or create scenarios. I just played nobody's ever done that. We all have a tremendous imagination. We know that. But the other commonality I thought we had, and I floated this out years and years ago, is we needed downtime. We needed a period in our lives where we weren't inundated with trying to race after the Joneses or work deadlines, and just a degree of downtime or an unemployment or something where the house got quiet. And she's saying she already was incredibly insightful, of course, but with the cat, alone with the cat, 24/7 for at least now 7 to 10 days. With obviously, I'm sure she saw other family members, but this additional downtime led to an even heightened perception. And there's no doubt all the noise in this world, the endless noise, frequencies, TV shows, in this case, or in this example, you would think they would want to make them good and not piss people off, so they throw out their TV. But the two commonalities amongst our group of people is incredible imagination, and maybe this one doesn't apply to everybody, but most of us most people tell a story where it doesn't mean when they had the downtime, then they had the epiphany, or they were able to see through the 2001 event. It just means at some point they had downtime, and maybe not too long after that, they have a new level of perception. Don't mean it actually came during the downtime. One isn't always related to the other. Let me continue. Okay, we've been emailing back and forth with endless Magenta examples. She found this band called, is it called Blackpink? Blackpink, where there's new releases that all of a sudden have 20 million views where it's not even released yet. It says something here about, I noticed the lyrics in Pink Venom, which I think is from Blackpink. I noticed the lyrics in Pink Venom involve tasting the venom, leaning into the pure feeling, tasting of color, emotions, thoughts, etc., which is precisely what David Eagleman, this guy's the Westworld consultant on technologies, David Eagleman, it's what he describes in his TED Talk. This guy, David Eagleman, is one with an eagle eye. Isn't it interesting, though? I mean, what we're talking about here, and the guy's name is Eagleman. This stuff comes up all the time. He knows about all of this, and he's working towards digitizing this stuff and testing, enhancing these capabilities in people in lab and field settings. His close colleague mentioned James Holmes, the Dark Knight Rises Aurora Bang event. Remember the guy with the creepy, whacked-out look and the orange hair? Happened a few years after Hook, and it was all part of that stuff we looked at many years ago. His close colleague mentored, it says, it doesn't say mentioned, I'm sorry if I got that wrong. David Eagleman's colleague mentored James Holmes. And again, that's that orange-haired guy that looks so strange in news broadcasts, who was, I guess, at this point, quote, convicted of whatever happened in that movie theater in Aurora, Colorado. So this always happens, these weird connections, relationships. There was even a story, this is completely unrelated, that somebody from the Robin Williams movie, the Dustin Hoffman movie, Captain Hook, somebody from that was driving through Colorado and was involved in whatever happened in Aurora. I mean, what are the chances? 1 in millions, but these connections always keep coming. It's just kind of how the reality has to do business with its breadcrumbs. The quote controllers, or those the truth community call controllers, have more access to knowledge of this phenomenon, and thus their influence also comes into play as they've learned how to ride or surf the electromagnetic spectrum, to exploit it, and to use it to exploit us. Color and light rule in this reality. Control the color and light, control the population. Entertainment via film, TV screens, live concerts, music, everything else on your iPhone, digital media, serves the main vehicle to influence society in this way. Transmedia storytelling, interrelated, concurrent narratives told across media platforms, is central to their control. In this sense, Disney is now Pixar, was pivotal in this agenda. So Matt again saying, trying to decipher this, when we bring out the police lineup, one part of the police lineup of the bad guy, the whodunit that Steffers is suggesting, we've never talked about, of course, is the electromagnetic spectrum itself. She says here, both the creeps, the George Bush creatures, people in the avatar like us, but on the creep size, like Jeff Bezos, both those creeps and the electromagnetic spectrum, guys, do I fully understand this? No, but some sort of sentience in the electromagnetic spectrum are working together to pull off whatever is being pulled off here. The unaware, the guy down the cul-de-sac, are simply going along for the ride and have no clue how they are being played. Think octaves, strings, music theory, etc., as the Earth, universe, cosmos is literally musical. One of the main secrets is that time is a circle, a spiraling circle, like a labyrinth, that keeps repeating. But each time around the circle, the curve is incrementally expanding. Envision a 33 record on a turntable with a needle in the center. The electromagnetic spectrum is also a circle, even though it is represented to us in a linear fashion, just as time is represented to us in a linear fashion. So time and the spectrum are both circular, cyclical in nature. Steffers writes at such a high level, I can't even forget, let alone understand it. I can't even read it. And I ain't no dummy. This David Eagleman guy, again, that was the technical advisor for Westworld, in his TED Talk from David Eagleman, talks about creating super sensory humans. He actually means synthesates. There's SYNESTHETES. I don't know what that word is. As that is the focus of his research. That's the key. Of course, this is being done in an artificial way. It is not how ancient humans used to perceive without the use of technology. I have a sense that this all ties back into the Dune lore. This probably explains the whole super soldier type, MKUltra stuff, etc. This circles back to the scene in The Wiz, and essentially all scenes in The Wizard of Oz, where they're literally installing a feeling of color. SYNESTHESIA. And she's telling me how to pronounce it, and I still don't know how to pronounce it. Pronounced synesthesia. Synesthesia, I guess. Okay, guys, if you didn't see the scene in The Wiz, I just had, still frames. I'll show it at some point as soon as I can, but it would have to be on Free Voice. It's at the bottom of North and South Towers. Again, huge crew of singers and dancers. Everything initially is in the emerald green. Dorothy, Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, his Scarecrow, etc., Nipsey Russell are looking on. Again, I don't know how many hundreds of people they have down in this song and dance, but it's all about the green. Oh, it's so cool to be green and feel it. But then, just kind of by decree, the announcement comes from Oz, which is some section that joins North and South Tower, the two into one, and Oz, via big speaker, big megaphone, decrees that no, green is dead. Now what's in is red. And a big song and dance happens regarding the red, the flash of the color itself on the conjoining structure between the towers is clearly, it's only for a split second, but it's clearly magenta. The red is just what's expressed in the movie, because the magenta wouldn't make any sense, as I said a video or two back. And then another decree comes later, and the decree is, no, now gold is in. And everything immediately switches, all the pyramids and everything else, all the way people are dressed, switches over to gold. So, if the Wiz presentation in that regard, it is at the foot of the towers, guys. There are pyramids everywhere. If it is that important, then, Matt, what does gold mean? I don't know, but one can conclude that the magenta is say, phase 2, and there's ultimately going to be a gold phase. I don't think they would have just thrown the gold in for fun or because it makes a pretty picture. And they have a inhuman patience. That's why the world's not going to come to an end like all the truthers believe in a year or by next Wednesday. They have a long-term agenda, and it probably will include gold, whatever the gold represents in that scene from The Wiz. Well, Matt, what did all that mean? I don't know just yet. I'm going to try to pause here and dive into it and try to interpret it, bring it back to the first level. Remind Steffers that the reality itself will feed you the breadcrumbs you're looking for and will artificially put breadcrumbs in front of you that will, I'm sure you're aware of this, but lead you to the wrong conclusions. Just the amount of breadcrumbs Steffers has uncovered just in this research on one topic is inhuman. I mean, in other words, no real world could feed all of these connections, synchronicities, and relationships, even with James Holmes. I mean, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous to give this reality any stock. It is breaking down across the board, and no real world could pull all of this off. But in terms of what this means now, I'm going to have to pause. Okay, guys, when we try to figure out things at this level that are this bizarre, what am I going to say? You absolutely have to start with the basics. So do we believe there is a group here, a group of creeps that has a much better understanding of how the governing dynamics of reality works at the absolute core base level? Meaning, if it comes from a university white paper, or it comes out of something prepared for the public, like what was that guy's name again? Nick Bostrom? If it's prepared for the public, we know that it's bullshit. It would never be shared with the university. It would never be leaked. They have an understanding. Okay, that's the one. Not out to bow down to how powerful these creeps are, but we come in, the deaf, dumb, and blind kid. They potentially come in with knowledge of past lives, technology passed down. They know things about how reality works that we don't. Okay, that's just the facts. Do we? Who cares? Ultimately, what from our spiritual nature? Again, this is just fun trying to figure this shit out. Do we have to figure this out to win this game? In my opinion, no, not at all. This is just a fun exercise in thinking big. It has nothing to do, figuring any of this out has nothing to do with what you need to do for yourself here, the worry about yourself aspect. However, we have been immune thus far, but it doesn't mean we are guaranteed to always be immune. If we understand the tactics and the strategies, then we are more able to overcome it if it ever does turn up the volume on us. I'm not going to assume that potentially because I've been immune, I always will be immune. I can guarantee I will always be immune if we can see via research like what Stevers is doing, what they're doing at a strategic and tactical level. So it's not completely unnecessary. In other words, to build armor, one needs to understand the weapon to construct armor correctly. The second thing to talk about here at the absolute common sense level is, for those that have looked at it as much or even 20% as much as I have and Steffers has, before the Magenta popped up, and we're still in the first or second inning in understanding it. Maybe Steffers here has taken us to the fifth inning. Only time will tell. But we know, and we've been looking at the emerald green presentation for years. Now, is there anybody in this community that's old guard that doesn't think somehow the creeps are using that emerald green presentation for a reason? Is it just pretty pictures? Does anybody here, the old guard, believe, well, we've seen it at the end of Daisy's Dock, at the end of Gatsby. It was as Satan was portrayed in Prince of Darkness. The Jumanji. You don't want me to go through all the emerald green. There's hundreds and hundreds of how the emerald green is used in very important parts of media or art, whatever. Okay, we know that. Does anybody think it's just pretty pictures? Matt, they just like that color. It looks good with the high-heeled shoes. We know it's not that. Okay, so if it's not just pretty pictures, then doesn't that, without me understanding exactly what Steffers is saying, and I don't think she has it all figured out, but doesn't that in and of itself give incredible credibility to potentially where Steffers is going here or where she's taking it? All the emerald green they've been using, and I'm sure if we racked our brains and locked ourselves in the Library of Congress like John Nash, we could come up with other places and other times in history where the color run in Philadelphia, and a certain type of color was associated with protests in Paris and all this stuff. Okay, the orange. Okay, that's a 33. Okay, so we know, are they all doing it just because they like the way the color looks and it's just pretty pictures? No. If we don't believe that, then it must be doing something. Either, maybe I'm a simpleton, but to me it's pretty simple. Either doing something to the nature of reality itself, or like I said a few videos back, but these are actually one and the same, our perception of reality or the nature of reality itself. And if we are real generator beings that are very essential to reality creation itself, and the Kabbalion all is mind, then our perception will ultimately reflect back on the creation of reality itself. The perception is more important. So it's just kind of semantics, how you want to put it. So basically, I'm simplifying it too much, but if the color use here, or the color use there, or the magenta, or the emerald green, or the orange that was associated with Donald Trump and all that stuff, if it's just pretty pictures and there's just color, it's just fun. If we none of us think that, well, then that by itself lends credibility to what Steffers is saying. Maybe she'll never be able to convince us, or she herself might never be convinced that the electromagnetic spectrum itself carries the ultimate sentience here, or intelligence carried through light itself. But I mean, it's something to keep on the table. If we determine that to be true, then we'll have to determine what best armor to wear, not literal, not Spanx, but spiritual armor, or ability to perceive through it, or at least not be affected by it. But what pops into my mind right now is the end. We looked at in a freevoice.io video, the Tears for Fears album. The new one is called The Tipping Point. And the song or the video that got my attention most was Breaking the Man. Was it called Breaking the Man? And 30 seconds or less, guys, if you don't know what I'm talking about or didn't see this on Free Voice. It's a pretty good song, very interesting music video, but it just shows a population inside of a maze. Everybody's the same, automatons, everybody's walking the same, it's all the same. Looks like a male figure inside of a Sims game, up and down the maze, so you can't get out. But then at the very end, the camera pans out, and all that's going on, which is a representation of modern culture and society, all that's going on is in the palm of this, I don't know, this she could be a demon, she could be Sophia, I don't know what they were trying to say, but all of this society and culture for billions of people is going on in the palm of this creature's hands. And there's a projection coming from her eyes. And that projection is, to me, the first time I saw it, that was like a movie projector, light itself. And it's at least similar to what Steffers is talking about here with the electromagnetic spectrum. I'll keep it on the table because I know for sure they have an understanding of how things work here. That's just, it would, so far beyond anything we've even thought of, let alone anything any egghead has ever thought up or talked about or presented in a white paper in a goddamn university. Well, Matt, based on all that, we might never figure it out. We're screwed. No, we're not. No, we're not. Look, we're Dorothy, the Tin Man. We're Pick the Wiz. If you'd rather be in the Wiz than the Wizard of Oz, wouldn't it be good to know what the witch is up to? That's all we're doing here. Do we have the ability to overcome the witch or whatever they throw at us, no matter if we get ourselves in the right place and we have our veils dropped and our spiritual armor up? We potentially don't need to do this sort of training, this kata or coyote, or we don't, but it's not a bad idea if you're Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz, or you prefer to be Diana Ross in the Wiz. It's not a bad idea to say, what's the Wicked Witch up to? Because they're not prepared for it a little bit. That's all we're doing. What are these creeps up to? Who does number 2 work for? What's Dr. Evil up to? What's Mini-Me? How's Mini-Me going to deliver the secret formula? We're just saying, look what these creeps are up to. We probably don't have to prepare for it, but maybe we should. It's okay. Now, your cousin and sometimes your brother and the guy down the coal, they're falling for it, and that ship of fools is sailing away. And if they're Christopher Cross sailing away, and hey, we tried. What are you going to do? We tried. Just tell Isaac to get him a drink on you. So have Julie deliver it if she's old enough to deliver. I guess they're at international waters. She can deliver drinks. That's little Vicky, that little obnoxious Vicky. Julie was always over 21. It was Vicky that potentially couldn't deliver Isaac's drinks. Matt, this was a serious topic, and now you're just gonna water it down into debauchery. Yes, so what? That's the mood I'm in. Okay, I'll try to stay serious as long as I can. SERIOUS, not SIRIUS, or John McEnroe's ode to "You Cannot Be Serious." I'll try to keep the ridiculousness down to a minimum, and continue with the Steffers ideas with this one final point about the color spectrum. Well, what the hell was it? I completely forget. Okay, I know what it was. A few videos back, I reminded you guys of what I said years back, and it's still something we don't really understand, but the idea was it seems like they're trying to make what was once a real world into a fake world. Now, that's the most first grade way of saying it. It was never completely real or completely solid, even if it is being morphed or changed. But at least it was more concrete or was more real into more transparent or etheric, or I don't know. Matt, these words you're coming up with it's not good, man. I'm not going to re-record it. So what? You know what I mean? Why do you need the perfect word? It was there. And I, again, use that same horrible example that maybe, a buzzed cauldron, he did crack 6 of them up on the surface in a crater somewhere. And now that it's so absurd, we know that didn't, but maybe in like when we were kids, it was perfectly believable, or maybe it even happened, but I don't think so. But everything seems to erode over time. And most people, when I throw that horse shit out, people are generally like, yeah, I can't explain it either, but there's something to it. What was once a believable presentation on the news and was a professional presentation, or the way they would go about cooking up their wars, and it's all breaking down and, whatever. Okay, we see that, Matt. Now, if all the old guard basically agrees there's some sort of phenomenon going on like that, even if it's not put in the best terms. Now, if you're able to do that and you were a creep, you would have to do it with the color spectrum. You'd have to, Roy G. Biv, what people see, whatever's coming from the screen, it's coming through the eyes, part of the sensory experience in the avatar. The color spectrum would be a big part if you're trying to turn a reality that was like a 4 out of 10 that was real into a 1 out of 10 or a 0.5 out of 10 real. And eventually, I guess if it breaks down enough, there won't be any difference at all in people's discernment between what's called a real world and living inside Ray Kurzweil's chip environment. I mean, maybe there'll be one and the same, and that's will just get everybody to walk into the chip environment because they'll basically be no different. Maybe if you can't bring the mountain to Muhammad, or it's the inverse. You can't potentially get anybody to just step into Ray Kurzweil's chip environment. You need to bring reality down and kind of maybe meet it in the middle. So one slimy hand shake hands with the other slimy hand. You meet it in the middle. The simulated realities will come up, but the reality itself will come down, will become less solid, more whatever. I'm not going to let Matt. Don't go through the damn words again. You didn't get it right the first time. You dumb son of a bitch. Sorry, you know what I mean. It's why do we assume that the simulated world and Mark Zuckerberg passing out his headsets? Anybody want a headset? Who doesn't have a headset here at the conference? Who doesn't? You don't have a headset in the back, sir? Get him a headset. You can't. Maybe you can't bring it up without bringing reality down. They have to meet in the middle. Guys, because I did mention my good friend Mark just a minute or two ago, it is great time to introduce the newest sponsor to the Quantum of Conscience old-fashioned radio show, which is the Mark Zuckerberg Grilling Package. The Mark Zuckerberg Smoked Meats Grilling Package. I can't make fun of the name because this is a real sponsor. Wherever the big green egg is sold, outlets like Ace Hardware, Home Depot, Walmart, wherever you buy your big green egg, Mark Zuckerberg Preferred Grill, present coupon code or promo code, write this down, Zuck the Sauce. You will get an unlimited supply of Sweet Baby Ray's, hot, medium, or mild, for as long as you or Mark Zuckerberg shall live. So come on, guys. Since you saw the Mark Zuckerberg YouTube video presentation of smoked meats, you wanted a big green egg for yourself. I know you did. I know your wife did. I know the kids did. Go for it. Indulge. Treat yourself to the big green egg. Present promo code Zuck the Sauce and get an unlimited supply of Sweet Baby Ray's. I was talking to Greg not too long ago. We started talking about Y2K, the turn of the century, and the problems that didn't happen. And I guess we talked about this for 20 minutes. And somebody's throwing the rubber ducky. Y2K? Matt, I don't expect this show to be the most timely presentation of news, but Jesus, 22 years ago. I mean, my God, can't you talk about something that relatively new from 10 years ago? Guys, it's finally time to address this. I've wanted to talk about this for a long time. Is it a reality breakdown? Maybe. But the first way to go, it has to do with how there were no problems, which makes no sense to Greg, no sense to me. What actually happened when the millennium flipped? Now, here's where we have to start this conversation, okay? There is a percentage, and there are rubber duckies being thrown right now hard. I would say, 5 to 10% of this audience is still your hardcore truther. You know, the spitballers, fifth grade truthers, the secret societies can pull off 10,000 conspiracies all to perfection. That type of person, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be mean, but, then they're still here for some reason. They're still here. Some people have checked out. They believe, of course, that everything's fake, of course. Matt, they cooked up the fear. You yourself talk about all the Not Milk does is try to cook up fear, unwarranted. That was fake. I mean, no, it wasn't. All right, no, it wasn't. My sample size isn't gigantic here, but let me just tell you the story. Put the rubber ducky down, back away under the water. Okay, give me a minute. The people, everything's fake. Everything's fake. Nobody says things are more fake than me. Okay, yes, there's legitimacy to saying everything the Not Milk does is try to instill a negative emotion like fear, anger, jealousy. Okay, we know that. Okay, that we've been talking about that for a long time. So I don't know how I started talking about it with Greg, but I said to Greg, I remember going back. I was in San Francisco for the insurance company. Went back to the home office for us was in Wilmington, Delaware. And I remember there was a whole team of people working on the claim system. It was medical claims, medical and dental claims for the Y2K problem. And I remember stories where the guy knew he was in such a position where they could never get rid of him. He tripled his fees. It was this outside consulting group, but not like some gigantic consulting company like IBM. It was a smaller group. And I remember the guys sitting there, the whole team of them doing the Y2K around the cubes in the back. They had these temporary offices set up, and this went on for a long time. And Greg said, I remember it too. At his, tool and die company. I don't know, exactly how to describe what Greg did, milling machines, and he was more on the technical side of that. But he's like, yeah, the team, they came in years before, and they started doing the debugging. Or it was for anybody that's relatively new or younger, the problem with Y2K was they did all the coding with just 2 digits for the year. So 97, 98, 99, it all works. Your dam still opens up or your street lights still go on. But then what happens when when you go to the next millennium, it goes to 00. It doesn't know that the next year has come. The computer will think it went back in time. Your dam will freeze up. Your casino slots will stop. I mean, all this stuff around the world. At that time, for anybody that's under age 30, we had a lot of computers, believe it or not, in the late 90s. It wasn't abacuses and rolling rocks and lodestones and shit. There were computers everywhere. Billions, probably, in the world. So for the crowd that says, "Oh, that's fake, Matt. They just cooked up the fear," that doesn't make sense if you were to say that. All right, because anybody that knows anything about computers would say, even in the 90s, yeah, almost everything ran on a computer system. Again, same stupid examples, but the dam spillway needs to open up, the street light, whatever it may be, the red lights, whatever. There's billions of applications, of course. These computer programs aren't going to. It was fake. No, they would say they believed it. They said this could cause a major problem when it flips from 98, 99 to January 1st. The ball drops and it goes 00. These computers are not gonna, it's gonna cause problems all over the world. It wasn't just propaganda from the news. These real computer programmers, they were working on it. They themselves, knowing computers, say this: if we don't fix this in time, this is going to cause a problem. They didn't work for the Not Milk or for the CIA. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so it's ridiculous to say the problem was fake and they just tried to instill fear. Ridiculous if you've investigated or you talk to anybody at all that did this programming. All right, Matt, stop being so defensive. All right. Now, Greg and I were talking and we're saying, how many hundreds of billions or trillions or Carl Sagan billions of lines of code are there? I mean, Greg and I were saying, when do you remember they started to do this debugging? 3 years out, or 3, sometimes a little bit more, but they didn't start it 7 years out or 5 years. They started it 2, 3 years out. And Greg's like, well, I could see, them fixing a lot of it, but it just doesn't make sense. And I was agreeing, and Greg and I were agreeing that on January 1st, we woke up in the United States, East Coast time, and Australia was celebrating their New Year's because they're way ahead of us. And do you see any problems in Sydney? If I was talking to Greg at the time, and he was giving his experience, I was giving mine. I didn't know Greg at the time, but Greg was saying to one of his coworkers, no, the lights, they have a celebration with the fireworks and no problems. The city's lights didn't go out. We're not hearing any problems at all around the world. And, it was just, we had a party to go to, but people were talking at the time, like, well, what if Y2K caused all these problems? The party's going to be canceled. If New York City has a blackout, obviously we're not going to have this party. But then we observed the Far East and China, and then we observed Germany. Nothing happened. The UK, France, nothing happened. So we figured, well, nothing's going to happen in the US, and nothing did happen. But Greg and I are like, it's just not possible. They found, or they were able to find all those code lines. And I mean, guys, the reality breakdown associated with this, if you don't think I'm going too far, maybe I need a different term or different degrees of that term, but nothing happened. And I mean, nothing. You would think there'd be all sorts of stories the next day, maybe not a lot, but in one American city, 20 blocks in Chicago, the power went out. Nothing happened. That would still be relatively nothing compared to all this code that had to be be found. And we just, you can go back now and look at stories. And I just looked it up before the segment. Did I miss something? And basically, there's just a few things that they say were problems, but none of it is verifiable. None of it can ever be confirmed by somebody you would ever know. For example, one of the articles said a Japanese nuclear plant had a problem. Well, they could fake that. I don't think there was any problems, guys. They said spy satellites stopped working. Oh, sure. Every 2-bit little company that makes suspenders, they had no problem in terms of their Y2K, but satellites went down per this article. It's bullshit. Which means nothing happened. And again, one last time, they're screaming at me, Matt, it's fake. You've resorted back to a naive. No. Okay, go talk to anybody that knows anything about C++ programming, computers at the time. Everybody, thousands of people that are regular people, not people that won't work for the system, they all saw the potential problems of a computer not understanding that the year has gone up 1 year, not back to 0, 0. Okay, it's not fake. What is a reality breakdown to me is nothing happened, and I mean nothing. How is that possible? Well, where are you going with this, Matt? I don't know. Greg and I threw it out to Greg. Do I believe this? No, I don't believe this. I said to Greg, well, what's more likely? That it did, society, it actually did melt down and just-in-time systems all screeched to a halt and water, and the whole world melted down. It was reset. The video game of this reality was reset. What's more likely? That? And then we just reset, and our memory is nothing happened. Like when that tree potentially fell on me, and I just, the tree hung up 4 feet above my head. It wasn't that convenient. Well, maybe the tree really fell on me, and this video game somehow resets. I don't know exactly how that would work or not work. But I said to Greg, is it more likely that nothing happened, or it was a disastrous breakdown and the video game reset somehow? And he didn't exactly jump on board with that crazy-ass theory. He's like, well, I'm not putting them at equal weight, but I see what you're saying. Guys, in terms of finding all this code, there is no needle in the haystack analogy that's applicable. It's to make sure you get it all is a needle in a haystack, and the haystack is 1,000,000,000 times larger than the haystack you can imagine in the back of the guy's farm. To get it all, where things don't fall through the cracks. And again, maybe we didn't expect major problems, but the breakdown to me is nothing happened. And I hear some people screaming, we'll do it one more time, 30 seconds or less. Matt, obviously, because nothing happened, proves it was fake. No, it doesn't. Talk to anybody that computer codes even now, let alone at the time. The computer system, and it goes, the year flips, and it goes 00, and it thinks it's 100 years in the past and doesn't know a year it's gone forward. Millions and millions of things can come to a screeching halt. It is a reality breakdown to me that nothing happened. Well, then, Matt, you're going to come on this old-fashioned radio show, which is high-tech. You calling it old-fashioned. You're going to say it's some sort of reality breakdown, but you're going to have no explanation then for what happened. We can go and make it into a sci-fi novel if you want. It's like that scene in Clear and Present Danger. Matt, you're going to propose this, but you have no answers. Is this what it was like that drug lord said to that guy that worked for Black Ops for Castro? Is this what it was like when you worked for Castro? You have no answers. You're using a woman. This one will cost you nothing. I don't have answers. If you want to turn it into a sci-fi novel, let's turn it into a sci-fi novel. Okay. Society did melt down. The Matrix had to be reset. Does that explain the mud flood? I don't know. There's more. I'm more willing to go in these sci-fi areas, or I'm interested in going in these sci-fi areas than that. Just every single line of code was found and corrected by people up late drinking coffee. This army of genius computer programmers that were started to be hired in 96 and 97 to fix the code wherever they found a 2-digit date to make it into a 4-digit date. I'm more apt to believe the crazy ass shit than that they found it and fixed it all. I don't know. Maybe this deep state can communicate with the Al Gore sentience of the internet. Maybe it's like Lieutenant Barclay sitting on his throne somewhere like the Lawnmower Man, and they said, look, we got our army of computer programs out there, but this is going to cause problems. We need to ask you, sentient internet, can you get out there and help us fix it? Do I think that happened? No, but I don't know. I don't have any answers, but it's a fun exercise as long as the segment of the Spitballers don't get too violent and vitriol with the Matt, it's fake stuff. Being pelted by Spitballs is a good time for our next sponsor. It's another new sponsor for the Quantum of Conscience old-fashioned radio show. It's a scent you all know and love, Elon Musk's Musk. Elon Musk's Musk, a scent for men who are struggling. You can no longer say just a scent for men. That is not acceptable anymore. So Elon, in his brilliance, has added Elon Musk's Musk, a scent for men struggling. Struggling with what? Struggling with anything. Struggling running 5 global corporations at the same time. Struggling with one's own gender identity. Struggling with feeling you're inadequate after watching She-Hulk. Elon Musk's Musk, a scent for men who are struggling. Okay, guys, I haven't paid too much attention to the bedtime for Bonzo pox. I'm not going to say that last word again. I haven't. I'll just call it bedtime for Bonzo. If you're not, this is literally the movie that Ronald Reagan starred in, where he took care of a monkey before he became governor of California and then went on to be a president puppet of the United States. So for the first part, Ronald Reagan in Bedtime for Bonzo was with a monkey. So for the first part, monkey, I'm going to just say Bonzo. For the second part, the word I can't say, I'm going to say socks. Like when a blue light special went up in 1981 at Kmart, and it was a blue light special for a pile of socks, and everybody ran over and literally like pushed and elbowed and shit like it was Black Friday to get socks at 10 cents off. We all did it. If you're over 45, you did it in Kmart. That blue light special went up, man, you ran. You dropped your corn dog or whatever you got at that little refreshment counter. You just splashed your Coke all over the floor. You ran to that blue light special. You know you did. So did I. You can admit it. So what? So it's Bonzo socks. Okay, New York City, because of Bonzo socks, declared a state of emergency August 1st. I don't know if the state of emergency still drops. You look at it, maybe it's still in effect, but you look at the news. How New York City school systems battling on how they're going to deal with Bonzo socks and all these headlines. Now, what was news to me, and the reason I'm mentioning it here, is they have the Carl Weathers movie, Action Jacksonation. They have it all ready to go. I have no idea how that's possible, how people accept it. Matt, you're not going to say reality breakdown again. I want to. I want to say it really badly. I don't know everything. When I fry an egg in the morning, it's a reality breakdown. Everything to me, Matt, you losing it. Okay, fine. But you'll know when I really lose it. Okay, you'll know. Think about it. So, that was that scene in. I was going to give my DVD of Falling Down to the Goodwill. I'm watching these. I'm cleaning everything out. Like I'm just completely getting rid of everything. It's like just like it's a really lame way of me stepping out of Jacob Marley Chains, trying to just give everything back to the Goodwill, get rid of stuff, throw everything I can out. And I will watch a DVD, and then I'll be like, I don't want to store this for 10 years and watch it again 10 years later. I've seen too many of these movies too many times anyway. Matt, you were on Bonzo socks. I'll come back. Okay, I'll come back to it just a moment. But I'm watching that scene. That's where it came, think about it. You and me, man. Remember that scene where he goes to the surplus, Michael Douglas, and falling down the surplus store? The guy's a little off. He says things I cannot say and have this video load. It's like, you and me, I know who you are, man. You and me, man, we're the same. It's like, no, you're a deranged psychopath. You and me, man, we're the same. And he says some things that are pretty damn funny. And be so politically incorrect, I guarantee when this movie's shown, even on HBO or wherever they ever going to show it again, they'll cut that scene out. So I said, oh, no, I'm not giving this DVD up. This DVD I've had for 20 years. I ain't giving this to the Goodwill. They'll cut the scene out, man, and I'm keeping it. Absolutely keeping it. I'm holding on to anything politically. I'll throw out the whole house, but I will hold on to whatever is politically incorrect. And I suggest you do the same. So, of course, the Action Jacksonation movie exists. The Carl Weathers exists for Bonzo socks. Where'd this come from? If you can believe it, people are lining up to rent the movie. They're lining up. If you can, well, of course we can believe it. These idiots are on the ship of fools. Of course we can believe it. They're lining up to rent Bedtime for Bonzo. And they just got, but can you put that so close to the last Booster? You got Booster, you got the 2, then you got Booster, and then you got Bonzo socks on top. How many you getting? How many of these damn things you get in a year in the arm? What the hell? How can the body keep up with all this horse shit? Oh my goodness. See, this someday they'll give you the metaverse and say, come on in, man. Come on in to our Zuckerberg Sweet Baby Ray's metaverse. Come on in to a Zuckerberg Big Green Egg Sweet Baby Ray's smoked meats metaverse. You ain't have to, there's no more shots, nothing. You have to worry about anything in the metaverse. Oh, it's still you. But I think I would lose a sense of myself and my spiritual self. Spiritual self? What are you? Who told you about that? Jabberwocky, that's new age hooey. Just come on into the metaverse, man. We got Sweet Baby Ray's, we got Zuckerberg Big Green Eggs, and people will fucking flock to it like their life depended on it. Thanks for listening. People are like, I can't get that hour back, man. Jesus, I can't get that hour back.